Hi, this is Jay Rosenzweig. I'm the founder and CEO of birthparentfinder.com. And today I have with me Sue Hurst. Hi, Sue. How are you?
I'm well, Jay. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, and it's good to see you. It's been, oh my God, it's been 6 years, I think, since we last saw you.
I believe so. I believe so.
So people don't know this, but unless they read your book, you found me through the Chris Schaubel story when Chris went as a keynote speaker at the Southern California Genealogy Jamboree in June of 2015. He was a luncheon keynote speaker. And at the last minute, he realized I wasn't there. And he really wanted to have me there with him when he spoke about finding his birth parents. So I rushed down there during lunch, and I was on stage with Chris, and I told how I helped find his birth family. And then afterwards, I remember that you came up to us.
Right. I was so overwhelmed by his story, and it gave me hope. It really gave me hope. But just hearing the journey that he went through and all that you went through to find his birth family was very overwhelming for me. And it really gave me hope that maybe this can happen for me.
So let me ask you this. If you didn't go to that conference, do you think your journey may have ended differently?
Well, I wouldn't have probably started it right away. In some ways, I thought, you know what, my birth mother is now 85. Am I ever going to find her? But then about 6 months later, a friend of mine did the 23andMe DNA test, and she found some long distant cousins she never knew she had. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do the 23andMe and just see what happens. And they found a second cousin, and we didn't know how we were connected. I contacted her. She got back to me. We still didn't understand it. And then she said to me, "What is your GED match number?" Well, I wasn't sure what that was. I tried to figure it out, and we were having a hard time. I went to my friend's house, and the website wasn't really user friendly for us. And that's when I said, you know what? I'm just going to call Jay at birthparentfinder.com and see if he can help me, because I've got a second cousin out there somewhere, but I don't know how to find anybody from my birth family. And
Right,
that's
and you
when
didn't know if that second cousin was on the maternal or the paternal side, did you?
no, I did not, and she didn't either.
So obviously your story ended positively, and you wrote a book, and this book was recently published, and this book is called Rockabye Baby, a story of your 50-year journey to find your birth mother by Sue Hurst. And obviously you did.
I did it. It should be released actually by the end of this week. The book version and an e-version also.
So obviously you've been looking for 50 years.
Yes.
And what burning desire did you have to find your birth family?
You know, since I was a young girl, I didn't have the best childhood. I had wonderful parents, but I had a very mean older sister. And I always wondered, like, where's my mom? Why did she leave me with this mean sister? I just wanted to find her. I wanted to know, why did she have to give me up? What did I do wrong? And I always dreamt it was Debbie Reynolds. It's like Debbie Reynolds because she got red hair and freckles like me. She's cute. She's funny. I want to be just like her. Maybe Debbie Reynolds is my mom. And it was always in the back of my mind, but I felt I could never start my search until I was 18. And that's when I went down to the courthouse in Los Angeles and was told that my records were sealed. And unless my birth mother, because she was so young at the time of my birth, unless she was looking for me, I would not be able to find her. And that was devastating for me.
Right. So throughout your book, you do talk about your mean sister quite a
Yes,
bit.
yes.
And
It was
apparently she has passed on, correct?
She did. She passed in 2006. Yes.
And she was the biological sister of your adopted parents, correct?
Well, she was adopted when my parents were in Chicago. My adopted parents could never have children. So they
Okay, that's
adopted.
right. She was, so both you and your sister were adopted.
Yeah. So when I found out I was adopted and my mom told me she was also adopted, it's like, oh, great. Okay. We're not related. So now I know why she's so mean to me. Maybe she'll be nicer to me, but it didn't happen. It never happened.
Now, did she ever find her birth family?
She never had any desire. She never had any desire. No, she never did.
So going back, we're talking 50 years, going back through history, you always had this little bracelet,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, my bracelet, my beaded bracelet that was on my wrist when my mom and dad adopted me when I was 3 days old.
Do you have that with you right now?
I do. It's actually, I had it in a memory box that my brother-in-law made me, in a shadow box, and it was glued so much to the background. I'm afraid to cut it out. I'm afraid to break one of the beads, but yes, this was on my wrist. So, and it says M. Francis. So growing up, I always wondered, was my name going to be like Mary Frances or Margaret Frances, or was that my mother's first initial? I never really knew.
So at what point, you talk about Debbie Reynolds quite a bit throughout your book. At what point did you realize that Debbie Reynolds' real name was Mary Frances Reynolds?
You know, at one point, it's probably been years ago, I just wanted to know, like, when was she born? What was her given name? And when I saw Frances, I mean, it was, the spelling was different. It was ES instead of IS. I said, oh my God, could she really be my mom? And then after I found out how old my birth mother was when she gave birth to me, I realized that Debbie Reynolds could not have been my birth mother.
Right, but
Yeah,
it was just a big coincidence that
yes,
your idol basically is Debbie Reynolds, and then either your birth name or your birth mother's name was M. Frances, which could have been Mary Frances.
but
But
it is Mary. Yeah, my birth mother's name, her first name was Mary. It was
right,
Mary.
and later on you found that out after you found out who she was, and that's
Yes,
pretty crazy, isn't it?
it's pretty crazy. You can't make this stuff up. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So let's talk about hiring our company. I remember talking to you, and I remember giving your case. Your case was not easy, and I'm not a DNA expert, and I don't have records in New York, and I had to use a colleague in New York to get some records. So
Yes.
Diane, who worked for me at the time, she worked for me for many years. Diane worked your case, and what happened?
Well, when I talked to you, you told me that she would be in touch with me. She got in touch with me immediately and said, you know what, I think this is a solvable case. We can do this. And then I gave her my information, what non-identifying information I had from the Department of Social Services, my DNA information from 23andMe, and my password, so that if somebody could use it to get into the GED match number, so maybe that they could find out who that second cousin was. And so I gave her the information. She said, give me a couple of days. And then about a day later, she called and said, you know what, Sue, I'm not sure if I can help you because my information only goes back to 1950. But she said, I do have a DNA guy in New York that I think I can send the information to him, and I'm sure he can find your birth mother. Well, within 4 days, Jay, 4 days, took me 50 years, and it only took him 4 days. And from newspaper articles and research from the county in which I was born and where they found the second cousin and newspaper articles, they found my birth mother.
And that was through that second cousin on 23andMe, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
So without 23andMe or DNA, your case would not have been solved.
It would not have been solved because I only had like M. Frances. I knew how old she was when she gave birth to me. I knew she lived in New York how many siblings she had, what her father did for a living. And I knew very little about, I didn't know anything about my birth father, only his height, his weight. And it's like, well, how am I going to find him? He was a Marine in 1947. How am I going to find my birth father with 20,000 other Marines in 1947? And I thought, it's never going to happen. I'll never find him.
So backing up, when we found your birth mother, who she was, who made the first contact?
Actually, Diane called her. She said, would you like me to call her? I said, yes, I think that would be best. I don't know what I would say. I'd probably stumble with my words. And she called, but there was no answer. So she left a voicemail, basically saying she was a private investigator and a genealogist doing some research on my birth mother's last name. And about 2 weeks later, we never heard from her. So I'm thinking in my mind, she's either in the hospital, maybe she's in Florida for the summer, you know, for the winter months or whatever. And so that's when I decided to write her a letter. And I wrote her a letter telling her that I've been searching for her my whole life and loving her my whole life. And nothing would be better for my birthday, which was coming up, than to fly back to New York and meet her.
So you wrote the letter, which there's a copy of it in your book, and then she replied back, and you have that reply in your book also.
Well, you know, at first, Jay, she did not reply. She did not answer me. And that's when Diane said, I think, let me see if she has any children. Let me see if I can contact. And she said, yes, I found, I believe, a daughter. Do you want me to call her? And I said, yes. And she called and found out I had a sister. Her name is TK. And she got her on the phone. She was driving home from work. And she said who she was. And she said, I believe your mother had a child in 1947. And my sister said, you know, we always thought my mom had a secret.
So let me ask you this. I mean, a lot of times birth mothers don't tell their children about children that they had that were placed for adoption. But obviously they knew something, but what gave them a clue that she had you in 1947?
They just felt that their mom had been very secretive about certain things growing up. They just felt there was something that she wasn't sharing with them. They really could never put a finger on it. And they just felt there was something in her past, but they had no idea again. And so then she contacted actually, TK is also adopted. She was Mary's second daughter that she adopted. And then about a year later, she got pregnant with my sister Kim, my biological sister Kim. So TK called Kim, and Kim was driving home from work and said, are you sitting down? And Kim says, well, yeah, I'm driving home. Of course I am. She said, well, we have a sister. Mom, you know what? That secret we thought mom had, guess what? We have a sister. She was born in 1947 and she lives in California. And she said to Kim, do you believe her? And Kim said, of course I believe her. Why would she make that up? And she said, I want to meet her as soon as we can.
I got to be honest with you. Most of the cases we get when we tell siblings or potential siblings that they have someone out there that could be their biological sibling, they want absolute proof.
Well, I told my sister TK, I said, I did the 23andMe DNA test. It proves 100% that your mom is my birth mother. But if you want to take, well, not you, but I said, if your sister Kim wants to take a DNA test, I will pay for it. That way you'll have 100%, confirmation. And she said, no, we believe you. And then they saw pictures of me on Facebook and they go, no, you're not making it up. Eventually my sister did do the 23andMe and I was her closest match.
Oh, wow. So you do have pictures of you and Kim, and do you think you look alike?
You know what? We're about 18. There's about 17 or 18-year difference. But I see a little bit of resemblance. Yes, I do.
And the strange part about this is that your birth mother did not want you to contact your siblings, correct?
She was very upset when she finally did send me a letter and told me that she did not want to meet me. And I have to be honest with you, that broke my heart. I had built up such hopes because basically all I ever wanted was to meet her and thank her for giving me life, because I've had such an amazing life. I had the best parents anybody could ever ask.
Right. And you kept praising them throughout your book that these were the greatest people. You couldn't have been placed with better people.
Absolutely, 100%. And all I wanted really was just to thank her. But I think, Jay, because she had buried this secret so deep down and nobody knew about it. And I think she was embarrassed, possibly, that her daughters knew. And she told both of the girls, yes, I will admit I did have a baby, but I never want to talk about it again. And
she was how old when she got pregnant?
It was 15 when she got pregnant. And what they did is the family just told everybody, because at that time, there was an older sister living out here in the LA area, and she just had a baby. And they said that she was having problems taking care of the baby. So that was their way of saying, I'm going to take Mary to LA for a while. We're going to help out with Betty because she needs our help. And that was their way out. She stayed out here until she gave birth to me. And then they went back to New York like nothing ever happened. She went back to high school. She became the prom queen. You know, I mean, it was like nothing ever happened. You just never talked about it.
Right. So you did reach out to your siblings, and obviously it couldn't have gone any better. And then what happened?
Well, we emailed back and forth, and I told my sisters, you know, we're in the month of May. I said, my daughter is turning 50 next month. We would love nothing better than to come out to New York and spend time with you. And they were both so loving and so welcoming. And I said, you know what, where's the closest hotel we can stay at? And my sister TK said, oh no, my husband and I own a hotel right here in Watkins Glen, and you're staying at our hotel. And I said, okay, just tell me how much. She said, oh my God, they would never charge you. You're my sister. She said, you are my sister.
So we have video of you and your daughter meeting Kim for the first time.
No, actually, that's the video when my daughter surprised me for my 70th and flew Kim out to LA, and that was at her apartment in Malibu.
Oh, so you had met Kim before that?
Yes, I met Kim in June of 2016. Tracy and I flew out there, and as we're coming down the escalator, we were dead tired. We'd taken the red eye. We were so tired. We both worked that day. And we just wanted to get to our hotel room and take a nap. At the bottom of the escalator is my sister Kim, her son Logan, and my cousin Connie waving at us. And I was in disbelief. She said, Susie, I couldn't wait until tomorrow to meet you. We had to drive the 2.5 hours to get here, and we're spending the night here because we want to spend time with you tonight. We can't wait another day to meet you.
So who's that with you in the video?
Oh, that is my friend Jane. I wasn't sure if you could see. Oh, in the video. Oh, in the video.
No. Yeah.
Oh, in the video is.
So who in the video of you being surprised? Who was with you in the video?
That's my sister Kim, right. And then my daughter Tracy's in the background.
And that's not the first time you met Kim then?
No. But it was a wonderful surprise. My daughter she pulled off a great surprise. It really was a magical weekend to have her here.
Also, in reading your book, you did mention that your birth mother, who is now deceased, up to the day she died, she had no idea that you met your siblings, correct?
That is correct. They did not share that with her. They were too upset. They just were too, you know what? They didn't want to upset her in any way. And I kept telling them, don't do anything to upset your mom. You know what? This is her secret. She's embarrassed enough that you found out. And you don't, in fact, when I was there the first time with my daughter, my cousin Connie had a lovely get together at her home. And my one brother-in-law, he took me aside and he goes, you know what, Susie, I want to call Mary And I want to tell her that we're all here for a little get together, and go pick her up and bring her over here. And I said, you know what? I think that would be a big mistake. I think she would be devastated that you all knew about me. And I wouldn't do that to her.
Getting back to your book, your title is Rock-a-Bye-Bye Baby. How did you come up with that title?
Well, I probably changed the title about 8 or 10 times trying to figure out the best title. But what I wanted to show on the cover is a nurse from the 1940s leaving the hospital with the baby in the carriage, and the baby's distressed because it's like the nurse is taking me away from my birth mother, and now I'm on my way to meet my adopted parents. And that's what I kind of wanted. I wanted to really capture the reader when they would see that picture. It's like, why is that baby distressed in that baby carriage? What's going on?
And I got back to you after I read your book. It took me about 2.5 hours. It's 140 some odd pages. And I got back to you with one word after I read it. Do you remember that one word I said?
Yes, you did. You said, bravo.
And I meant every word of that.
Oh my God.
Really, it was, you told me I couldn't put it down. And you know what? I certainly didn't. Obviously I know the outcomes of all these stories, but I don't know the in-depth details of yours. And this was very, very interesting. And I know some stories are heartbreaking, but yours did have a silver lining. And you have a wonderful relationship with your maternal siblings. And I know that you weren't really concerned about your paternal side. You did see pictures of your birth father, and he died. When did he pass away?
He passed in 2003. Yeah, one of my biggest regrets, Jay, is never meeting him. Really, one of the greatest regrets.
So you're very brave for telling this story, because a lot of people want it very private. We have a lot of clients that wouldn't even do this interview. Obviously, you didn't have that problem because you wrote a book about it. Right. And like I said, you're very brave. And what do you want to tell people that struggle their whole life? Sometimes they don't find their birth parents. Sometimes it gets unsolved. And in your case, it did get solved. But what do you want to tell people about hope and trying to solve this?
Well, I want to tell people that, it took me so many years, but years ago, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have 23andMe or Ancestry.com. And go on, do the DNA test, take the test. There's so many websites out there. There's so many avenues for us to explore. And your company, if it wasn't for you, Jay, if it wasn't for you and your company and your investigators, I never would have found Mary. So I owe it to you. And I seriously mean that. I mean, it was the best thing for me. And then to find my amazing sisters, I couldn't ask for better sisters. And then after I found her, it's like, okay, what about my father? I know no information. And one of my very dearest friends, Jane, said, you know what? You got a little information from the Department of Social Services that said your birth mother and your birth father knew each other for about 5 years, which means they either went to the same church, they went to the same school, they came from a very small town in upstate New York. How many people could have lived there in 1946? So she went on the census records for the 1940s, Jay, and after a process of elimination of hundreds and hundreds of names, that in those days, everything was handwritten. Very hard to make out, but I did know that my birth father's father worked for the government and how many siblings he had and what the ages were. So that helped. And finally, we went through, like I said, hundreds and hundreds of names. Finally, my friend Jane said, you know what? This one kind of matches up. The head of household, he worked for the post office, which is a government job. All the siblings lined up. So I was pretty sure it was him. And it's like, okay, now what do I do? So we found a niece of my middle brother, and my daughter called her because they're about the same age. And she said, yep, all that sounds like my grandpa. Let me call my uncle. or her dad, she called her dad, but unfortunately he didn't want to meet me.
Mhm.
But he said, I will talk to my sister, Susan. When I found out I had a sister, Susan, my name, and immediately she wanted to talk to me. I called her 2 days later, Jay. There was an instant connection. An instant connection. And now I have a wonderful sister, Susan, and a brother, Chris, on my dad's side.
That's fantastic. So it is 2021, toward the end of 2021, and this has been going on for the past 6-7 years now.
Right.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling like one of the luckiest people in the world. Seriously, it was the best thing I ever did. There was a lot of ups and downs. Yes, I got my heart broken, but I continued to persevere. I continued to persevere, and thank God my sister TK answered the phone that day and was so receptive and so loving to me. It was unbelievable.
And whether she's a biological sister or not, it doesn't matter.
No, because she always tells me, Susie, you are my sister. You are my sister. And that meant the world to me. And it still does. We talk all the time. And whenever we talk, she goes, oh, is this my California sister? And I go, yeah, are you my New York sister? I mean, we just had the best connection. All three of my sisters have come out for a visit now. I've been back to New York twice. And my husband and I are planning on going back next year also for another visit where I can see they all live within a half an hour of each other. They all grew up in the same town.
So wrapping this up, and I do really appreciate you being here today with me. Wrapping this up, your book, Rockabye Bye Baby by Sue Hurst. Where can people get this book?
It'll be available most likely by the end of this week at places like Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, the book version, and it's also going to be available in e-version. So it should be available by the end of this week, Jay. But with the holiday, it may go into the next week.
That's fine. And honestly, I recommend reading this. It's a light read. It is heartwarming. And I really enjoyed it. Obviously, this is my life in doing these stories, but I feel I'm part of my clients' life also when they go through their journey. And lastly, what do you want to say to Chris Schaubel? Because we would never have met if he was not at that luncheon that day.
Absolutely. I owe him so much because, like I said, his story truly inspired me. And I had sent him a couple of emails and asked him if I could mention him, in the book. He said, of course, so I owe Chris a lot. I would love to meet him in person and shake his hand and hand deliver a book. If that's possible, I would love to do that. I know you guys are close friends, so that would mean a lot to me if I could do that. So I'm gonna try.
We'll see what we can do. And again, Sue, thank you so much. And I wish you the best in everything you do.